video is to bring you the amendments that have been made in EIS in the recent past for the May 2020 exams. So those of you who have already taken exclusive classes for May 2020, I don't think you have to watch this video. If at all you want to be more clear about any concepts that newly have been added up, you can always watch it. But having said that, anybody who has taken classes for November 19 exams and before that, and you guys want to kind of know and understand what are the changes that took place exclusively for the May 2020 exams, then this video is the right one for you. Let's get started. A few concepts. Of course, the material will also be available alongside this, so the PDF will be part of the comment section, or you can even as well find it on my Instagram page. So, going by that, we would possibly have to cover 5 chapters. Let me start the very first one. Of course, some of the concepts, the fundamentals of that concepts remain the same, wherein some new things have been added up. Let's start with chapter number 1. Enough number of changes are there in chapter number 1. So let's get started with this concept of risk. So till here there have been any changes, haven't been any changes, I mean, and then the first topic where you have change is where risk is all about. So going by that basic definition, if you ask me what exactly risk is all about, so in this context, risk is any event. I believe you already know this definition, but let's start from the same so that we can go further. Risk in any event may be the result of a significant deviation from planned objectives. The significant deviation from planned objectives is what risk is all about, resulting in mainly an unwanted negative consequence, something that you don't wish to, unwanted negative consequences. So you want a positive consequence to happen, one that is wanting to happen. Two, in this case you have two words here, unwanted negative consequence. So two things out there. One, that it is obviously telling that it is not the right one to deal with, and two, it is a negative consequence that you're not willing to even look for. The planned objective could be any aspect of an enterprise's strategic, financial, regulatory, operational process. It could be your strategy, it could be about money, it could be about complying with laws and regulations, and it is also about the operational processes. It could be anything, and even with the regular products or services. So risk, we're going to discuss this in detail to see what exactly it will contribute. The degree of risk associated. Now the question when you say the word degree is how important is this risk. The degree of risk associated with an event is determined by the likelihood, wherein likelihood being the chance of something. The degree of risk associated with an event is determined by the likelihood of the event occurring and the consequences if the event were occurring, and its timing. So what if the event occurred, what can go wrong, and the timing of it will all determine the consequences, which is nothing but the term exposure. Yeah, 6 new terms have been introduced there. We will discuss each one of them now. So going by that, as we will be seeing, so that is the first primary part, is you understand the definition of risk. Now where does risk arise from? Where does the risk arise from? Let's go ahead further and figure out what happens with respect to risk. Where does the risk arise from? So going by that, you can see the sources of risk. The most important step in risk management process, standard number 315 from audit is, first and foremost, if you want to do anything and everything about risk, I think you need to first understand what exactly are the sources of that risk. So thereby, sources of that risk, the most important step in risk management process, to identify the sources of risk, identifying the source of risk, the areas from which the risk can actually occur. This will give information about the possible threats, vulnerabilities, and accordingly appropriate risk mitigation strategy. But later, I believe you've already known from the past that you studied, there are risk avoidance, risk acceptance, risk mitigation. So you will still continue to use those strategies only, but for that you should know what exactly is the risk. So thereby, the first step is to identify the source of the risk. Some of the common sources are commercial and legal relationships, economic circumstances, human behavior. There are employees may be negligent sometimes, natural events, political circumstances, technological and technical issues, and controls in individual activities. I think there are more than one reason for why the risk is, and we are going to see that in detail now. So what happened is, previously there were only 5 classifications of the risk, but now there's more elaborate classification. Technology risk, the list continues to remain the same, and data related risks are anyway discussed in the third chapter. So now, broadly, risk has 3 characteristics. One, that it brings potential loss as a result of the threat or vulnerability. Uncertainty of the loss expressed in terms of the probability, and the probability or likelihood, that is the chance that a threat agent which is mounting a specific attack against a particular system, so that can as well happen. So we are positively looking at what can go wrong in the context of risk. Now let's discuss this. This is a change wherein there is an elaborate classification of the various types of business risk. Let me take you through that. So what are the various types of business risk? So a little more elaborate classification now. Types of risk. First one is business risk is faced with all kinds. So basically the first category of risk is business risk. Then there are 2 more categories called technology risks and data risk, where there hasn't been any change. So if you look at what business risks are, businesses face all kinds of risk related from serious loss of profit to even bankruptcy, and to discuss below, let's see. First one is called a strategic risk. So see, we know from strategic management that to meet our goals and objectives, we do make strategies, right? So the possibility that we may not be able to meet our goals. So these risks could prevent an organization from accomplishing its objectives, which is about meeting goals. Examples include related to strategy, political, economic, regulatory, and global market conditions. These are also could include a reputational risk. That is a risk that happens when something gets affected to the brand. A reputational risk, leadership risk, brand risk, and changing customer needs. Then we talk about financial risk, risk that could result in negative financial impact, risk that could result in negative financial impact to the organization, waste or loss of assets. Example include risk from volatility of foreign currencies, interest rates and commodities, credit risk, liquidity risk, and of course, market risk. Regulatory compliance is saying that the risk that could expose the organization to fines and penalties, from a regulatory agency due to non-compliance with laws and regulations, Examples include violation of laws or regulations governing areas such as environmental, employee health and safety, protection of personal data. So basically, if you remember, you must have read in the past about duty of every body corporate to protect information. So all these, when they don't follow any of the laws, they can end up getting into these kind of risk. Okay, so whereby there's violation of laws or regulations governing areas such as environmental, employee health and safety, protection of personal data in accordance with the global data protection requirements and local tax or statutory laws. Then we talk about operational risk. What constitutes to an operational risk? Risk that could prevent the organization from operating in the most effective and efficient manner, or be disruptive to other operations. So if you look back, what are the examples? Examples include risk related to organizations HR, business process, technology, and even something to do with channel effectiveness, customer satisfaction, health and safety, environment, product or service failure. These are all something related to our own self, efficiency, capacity, and all of that. So going by that, we might possibly even have to look back at hazard risk. This is a new one. I think you've not heard in the past. Hazard risk is something to do with natural disasters, various insurable liabilities, impairment of physical assets, terrorism, etc. All these are hazard risks. Now, What didn't fall under the category of all the five, business risk, operational risk, reputational risk, compliance risk, and hazard risk, will fall in the category of residual risk. Any risk remaining even after all countermeasures are analyzed. So going by their names, I think they are pretty easy to understand. So that after considering all those risks, it's still some risk is remaining. Any risk remaining even after countermeasures are analyzed and implemented is called as residual risk. An organization's management of risk should be considered in two areas, that is acceptance of residual risk and selection of safeguards. Even when safeguards are applied, there is probably going to be some kind of a residual risk. This risk can be minimized, but it seldom can be eliminated. Very rarely it can be eliminated. Residual risk must be kept at minimal acceptable level. As long as it keep at an acceptable level, that is the likelihood is brought below the level, the risk can be managed. So the risk can be managed. So this is the very first part, discussing all the 6 risks wherein we speak about all of those. So once again, looking back at strategic risk, the probability of strategy failing, financial risk, any money loss, regulatory risk is because of not meeting any laws and regulations, operational risk is in your day-to-day operations, hazard risk is something that you can get because of natural calamities, and when the things don't fall in any of this, they can turn out to be what is called as residual risk. Now going by this, risk management and related terms, how do you, 6 terms are going to be discussed here, and what are those terms, something very important, we will just discuss that in terms of how and what are these. So going by that, first of which is called risk management and related terms. First let's see the definition of risk management here. Risk management, first if you know where is the risk, then you can go and kind of safeguard yourself from that. Risk management is a process. Risk management is a process of assessing risk, taking steps to reduce the risk to an acceptably low level, and maintaining that level of risk. Risk management involves identifying, measuring, and minimizing uncertain events affecting the resources. So going by that, I'm going to take you through 6 terms right now. First, which is called asset. What is an asset for an organization? What is the asset for an organization? Now you go by the simple definition. Anything that has some value to the organization, anything, let it be, it necessarily need not be anything to do with financial asset or any of that, anything that has value. So going by that, if you see what exactly it is, so asset can be defined as something of value to the organization, something that has value to the organization, that is what is called asset. Information in electronic or physical form, information in electronic or physical form, software systems, employees and all that. Irrespective the nature of the assets themselves, they all have one or more characteristics. What is that? Something to be qualified as an asset. What do you call it as? They should have some value for the organization. Or let's say I have some information which has some value for the organization. Then it becomes an asset. So they are recognized to be of value to the organization. They are recognized to be of value to the organization. They are not easily replaceable without cost, skill, resource, a combination of any of these. They're not easily replaceable. If they're easily replaceable, then why did they become the asset? They're not easily replaceable. They form part of the organization's corporate identity, without which the existence of the organization might itself be threatened, and their data classification would be normally they be proprietary or highly confidential, or even they can be called as a top secret. See, generally organizations did us capture as top secret, highly confidential, proprietary, internal documents and public documents. So internal documents is within the organization, public documents is that which can be made public. So this got nothing to do with any of that. But if something is like this, highly confidential or even a top secret, that possibly might turn out to be what is called as a asset. Then moving by that, we are going to the next, where it is, the next word is called vulnerability. So basically, what is it? The final conclusion is the purpose of the information security personnel to identify the threats against and the risk against these assets, so that any damage can be safeguarded by setting up controls. What do you mean by this word vulnerability? Now let's go ahead talk about this word vulnerability. What exactly is vulnerability and how are we so concerned about this term called vulnerability? Vulnerability is a weakness. Vulnerability is a weakness where in the system safeguards, weakness in system safeguards, the weaknesses that are there in system safeguard that exposes this whole thing to threats. It may be a weakness in the information system or a cryptographic system, anything, or other components, hardware, design, internal control, anywhere, wherever there is a gap or a weakness, that is only called as a vulnerability. That could be exploited by a threat. So now threat is something that you need to know, because see, first there is an asset which is something which has value. Any weaknesses in safeguarding these assets is called a vulnerability. But if, as long as you have a weakness, now like say for example, we didn't study a particular topic, we went to the exam. Now there is a possibility that that may come in the exam, may not come. The chance that it may be exploited will be the probability. Any action or event that may cause the damage is called a threat. So let's go one by one. So vulnerabilities, having a vulnerability will allow a threat to harm or exploit. Vulnerability potentially allow a threat to harm or exploit the system. For example, vulnerability could be a poor access control, allowing dishonest employees to exploit the system or to adjust their own records. Some examples of these vulnerabilities are given as follows. We will see what are some of those examples. Some examples of vulnerabilities are given, like say leaving the front door unlocked. Okay, obviously means the whole entire premises are unwanted visitors. Short passwords. Now all of you know what are the, okay, just a second. Okay, on this page. Okay, okay, sorry about that. So short passwords, we all know that we have password strength test nowadays only to make sure that you have strong and correct passwords. Short passwords are a great danger again. So missing safeguard. So if you don't have enough safeguard, that leaves us vulnerable or open to a attack. Missing safeguards often determine the level of vulnerability. Determining vulnerabilities involve a security evaluation of the system, including inspection of safeguards, testing and penetration analysis. Normally, vulnerability is a state in the computing system which must have at least one condition out of the following. Like how for us, for it to become an asset, we had few conditions. For something to become a vulnerability, we need to have these conditions. What are those? One, that allows an attacker to execute commands as another user, an attacker to execute commands as another user, allows an attacker to access data that is contrary to the specified access for that data, allows an attacker to pose as another entity, masquerading or projecting as an entity, and allows an attacker to conduct a denial of service. So all these total up potentially to become a vulnerability. So guys, what are the two terms that we discussed here? Risk management terms. Terminology: one, asset, anything of value to the organization. Two, vulnerability. A vulnerability is something where there is a weakness in the system safeguard. Three, talk about a threat. What is a threat? A threat is any action, event or condition that may inflict a harm into the organization. It's an entity, circumstance or an event with potential harm to the software system or the component through unauthorized access, destruction, modification or denial of service is called a threat. Now what you need to understand here is, for example, as I told you, you left one topic because you didn't attend the class or you didn't know and you are weak in the topic. That's your vulnerability. There are two things that can happen in the exam. There is definite possibility that a question can come from the topic that you don't know. And there is also a chance, like, you pray God and go before the exam. That topic I don't know. Question should not come from that. So you went there, picked up the question paper and scroll through everything. You didn't find even one question from that. Means what? Does it mean that you know the topic? No, it's still your weakness. But when that weakness is not exploited, that is, you're looking at the weakness part alone, but when you saw threat was there, but threat was not exploited by an event of that question coming in the exam. Look at the other scenario. You picked up the question paper, that's the first question. One, you have weakness in the topic. Two, there was a threat that it may come in the exam and attack you. And three, it has come in the exam. Now that is exactly why we have two more terms called attack and exposure. We will see how those work. So going by that, I hope you understood that it's an action, event or a condition. Action, event or condition where there's a compromise in the system, its quality and ability to inflict harm. So do something bad to the organization. Such an event, action or a condition is only called as a threat. Threat has a capability to attack. It has a capability. Will it attack or not? We don't know. But threat has a capability to attack on a system with the intent to harm. It is often to start threat modeling, which is known as threat modeling is about listing down all the known possible threats, while a list of known possible threats and vulnerabilities found in the system. Every system has a data which is considered as fuel to drive a system, and data is nothing but the assets. Assets and threats are closely correlated. Assets and threats are closely correlated. A threat cannot exist without a target asset. Obviously, it has to go and attack something. A threat cannot exist without a target asset. Threats are typically prevented by applying some sort of protection to the assets. Some sort of protection to the assets. We have that protection could be in the nature of controls. So going by two more important terms, exposure, and I also have one more important term for you here called likelihood and then attack. Let's go one by one. First, let's talk about attack. We will come back to exposure and likelihood because it's the order. Asset may have vulnerabilities. If there are vulnerabilities, there's a threat of something going wrong, and when there's a threat, that threat can always be instigated by an attack. And let's see how that works. An attack is an attempt to gain unauthorized access. Attack is an attempt to gain an unauthorized access into the system and or compromise the system's dependability. Compromise the system's dependability. That's a normal meaning. In software terms, attack is obviously a malicious, intentional fault, usually an external fault that has an intent of exploiting a vulnerability. So if you don't have vulnerability at all, there is no way something can attack you. And when there is no attack happening on you, there is threat. So thereby, all this starts off when you have an asset that too has a vulnerability. Basically, it is a set of actions designed to compromise the confidentiality, integrity, or availability or any other desired feature of an information system. So simply, it is the act of trying to defeat information system safeguards. The type of attack and its degree of success determines the consequence of the attack. So how big the attack is will determine how much will you also face the situation. So going by that, I'm taking you further here to the concept, getting back to exposure. Now look at exposure. What can be exposure? If attack has happened on you, obviously you know this word likelihood, right? Likelihood, the probability, chance. Likelihood of the threat occurring is an estimation of the probability. What is the chance? Okay, there is a attack happening, but what is the chance that the attack can really materialize? Like how we expect a chance of rainfall. Okay, it can rain, but what is the chance? Likelihood of a threat occurring is an estimation of the probability that the threat will succeed. Threat will succeed in achieving an undesirable event. The presence, tenacity, and strength of the threat. So is there a threat? The presence, tenacity, that is it located there? Where is it located? And the strength, how serious it is. That as well as the effectiveness of safeguards. So if you have a threat, it's okay if you have proper safeguards. But if there is a threat without you having safeguards, then I think that can create a problem all the way. The presence, tenacity, and strength of the threat, as well as effectiveness of safeguards, must be considered while assessing the likelihood of the threat occurring. Now, if only the likelihood is high and really an attack happens, and then mind you, obviously you're going to become a victim of this, and there will be an exposure where exposure is nothing but the extent of loss or damage that the entity has suffered. So I hope you've understood all these definitions. I'm going to repeat once again. We have asset, vulnerability. After that, an asset, if it has vulnerability, will carry a threat. A threat, there is a possibility of it occurring called the likelihood. Then the likelihood is high and it materializes, it's called an attack. An attack leads to a exposure. I hope all of you have understood these six terminology, and when none of these six are there, so to overcome any of this, we need what is called as a countermeasure. What is a countermeasure? It's an action, device, procedure. An action, device, or procedure, technique, or other measure that reduces the vulnerability, of a component is referred as a countermeasure. So that's what it is. You're trying to bring down something from going wrong, and that is exactly what is called as a countermeasure. A countermeasure device, an action, device, procedure, technique, or other measure that reduces the vulnerability of a component or system is referred as countermeasure. For example, well-known threat spoofing the user identity. How will you not let somebody spoof your user identity is by setting up strong passwords, strong protocols, and passwords. Similarly, for other vulnerabilities, the different countermeasures may be used. Concludingly, risk can be defined as the potential harm caused. Risk can be defined as what? The potential harm caused if the threat exploits a particular vulnerability to cause damage to an asset. And risk analysis is defined as, okay, now that's exactly what we're going to do later. Risk analysis defined as the process of identifying security risk and determining their magnitude and impact on an organization. Risk assessment includes the following, which is like identification of threats and vulnerabilities in the system, potential impact or magnitude of harm that it would cause to the CIA would have on the enterprise operations or enterprise assets should an identified vulnerability be exploited by the threat, and new technology provides the potential for dramatically enhanced business performance, improved and demonstrated information risk reduction security measures. So we need to take some countermeasures to kind of make sure that there is, because the more the technology you use, the potential for dramatically enhanced performance greater will also be the risk. So you need to increase the security measures as well. Technology can also add value. Technology can also add real value to the organization by contributing to the interactions with trading partners, closer customer relations, improved competitive advantage, and protected reputation. And also going by this, I think this topic I've just kept it as it is because there are the same four risk management strategies. Let me quickly even take you through that. Effective risk management. So now you have the 6 or 7 terminology very clearly identified from asset to exposure, and then how to take a countermeasure. Now going by this, we also need to understand how risk is effectively managed. Effective risk management begins with a clear understanding of the enterprise's risk appetite. I hope you studied the concept of ERM, wherein you know what risk appetite means is the extent of risk that an organization can tolerate. Okay, effective risk management begins with a clear understanding of the enterprise's risk appetite and identifying high level risk exposures. After defining the risk appetite and identified risk exposure, strategies for managing risk can be set and responsibilities can be clarified. Based on the type of risk, project and its significance, board and senior management may choose to take up any following risk management strategy in isolation or combination. When risks are identified and analyzed, it is not always appropriate to implement controls to counter them. Some risks may be minor and it may not be cost effective to set up a control on them. Obviously, you know the story, right? You can't go ahead bridging gap of every risk, which is not a viable solution as well. So what are the 4 risk management techniques? 1, I hope it's there in the pre-amended version also, so you must be knowing what this is. 1 is to tolerate and accept the risk. Yeah, risk tolerance or acceptance, that's what it is. Tolerate or accept the risk. One of the primary functions of management is managing the risk. Some risk may be considered minor because their impact and probability of occurrence is low. In this case, consciously accepting the risk as a cost of doing business. Yeah, if I'm doing this business, this risk will be there. So you can go by consciously accepting that fact. So In this case, consciously accepting the risk as a cost of doing business is appropriate, as well as periodically reviewing the risk to ensure that impact remains low. Periodically reviewing the risk to ensure its impact remains low. Try to eliminate or terminate the risk. That is also one of the options. If it is possible to eliminate the risk can be eliminated by replacing the technology with more robust products, that is more stronger and good products, with buying it from more capable and suppliers and vendors. If you don't want to keep it with you, you can obviously share it with the trading partners and suppliers. Like, you don't want to do something on your own, then you can, good example is to outsource infrastructure management. You can't take care of all the servers, or you can't take care of all the IT equipment. It's always better to share the risk. Then in such a case, supplier mitigates the risk associated with managing the IT infrastructure by being more capable and having access to more highly skilled staff than the primary organization. Risk also may be mitigated by transferring the cost of realized risk to an insurance provider. Then treat or mitigate the risk where other options have been eliminated. Suitable controls must be devised where other options must be eliminated. Suitable controls must be devised and implemented. Suitable controls must be devised and implemented to prevent the risk from manifesting itself, or to minimize. Manifesting is increasing itself or settling itself. So try to mitigate by setting up controls. And if none of this is possible, where the probability or impact is very low, the management may decide to ignore the risk, which is called turning back, or risk avoidance, as it is positively called. Accept the risk, eliminate the risk, share the risk, mitigate the risk, or turn back. The 5 risk mitigation strategies. So that's what the topic of risk, and of course the changes that are involved in this topic. So that is your very first topic. And in chapter 2, there is this table between installed applications and cloud-based applications. It was there in the past also, but I just want, some of the wordings have been changed here, so I just want to take you through what are those changes exclusively. So let's run down the points once again. It's not a big deal. So that's it. The very first chapter has only the change in the concept of risk, which is elaborately discussed. Now going to chapter 2, we have this difference table, which is talking about how installed applications and cloud-based applications, what could be this one. Let's go ahead here. Talk about an installed application, its installation and maintenance. As the software is installed on hard disk, of course that's what an installed application is, right? So it needs to be installed on every computer one by one. But when you buy a cloud-based version, installation on user computer is not required. Installation on a user computer is not required. Update and maintenance are defined responsibilities of a service provider. Okay, so service provider will take care of that. And in here, when you talk about accessibility, that being a second point, as software is installed on hard disk of the user computer, user needs to go to the computer only. If you want to access that, you got to go to the computer only, and you can't access it from anywhere. The computer where the software is installed, it cannot be used from any computer. But on the other side, if you have a cloud-based or a web-based application, you can use it from any computer in the world, that too available 24/7. So they look like 2 points are very much favorable in terms of the uh, web application. So the third point also says, yes, using a mobile application is very difficult in case of an installed application, but using mobile application become very easy as data is available 24/7. As technology evolves, mobile technology is becoming the industrial norm. So that's what everybody is using, and which is why cloud-based application is very much future oriented. So I hope by seeing that you can clarify yourself with 3 points which are absolutely in favor of the installed application. But let me now talk about 3 more points that actually are in favor of the installed application. Why do you say that? Is because look at data storage. Data is physically stored in the premises of the user. Yeah, it's physically stored with us, so thereby full control of the data is with us. When you talk about cloud, data is not stored on the user's computer, it's stored on the third party vendor, and it all depends on the service level agreement that you enter with. So that will determine how much right you have on your data. Also, whenever you're storing data on cloud, that's on third party server, you always have a threat to data security. As data is in physical control in the installed application, he or she can ensure that it is not accessed without, obviously, only those people who have proper access can reach out to the data. But when data is stored in cloud, data security is a challenge in case of a cloud-based application, as the data is not in control of the user or owner of the data. As time evolves, service level agreement provide for backup and disaster, but still, yeah, of course, nowadays in the service level agreement, it's all written in there. But having said that, it's always better that you keep the data, the highest security. If the question comes about security, then definitely it's about storing in your own device. And performance, when you talk about a well-written install application, will always be faster than a web application, because here in web application, it is dependent on the speed of the internet. Slow internet can pull you down. So first 3 points very much favored a cloud-based applications. The next 3 points very much favoring a installed application. Let's now look at the last point. Sounds like a decider, but then let's see. Now it's a 3-all situation. So we're going by the last one here. Install application shall have one or more flexibility and controls compared to web application. So it is very easy to write desktop applications that take advantage of the user's hardware. Okay. So, but that needs a great programmer. If the programmer is talented enough to write that, then it will be good for you. But having said that, the success of cloud-based application totally depends. Again, they allow uh, flexibility in both capital expenditure and operating expenses. Users can scale up and down. So enough flexibility is there even in the cloud. You can reduce your capital expenditure but increases your regular operating expenditure. So the last point is not more of a decider, which makes a 4-3. Flexibility is even, wherein if you're flexible enough to use somebody's written you a well written program, then you can as well be comfortable by using install application. No, if you want to be comfortable using a cloud-based application, you can as well always do that. So that is what we have in this part of this table, is an updated table in the May 2020 attempt book. So that is what is the first part of our discussion, and the only part, I guess, in the second chapter that is come with that. Now let's also see that there are some benefits for the ERP that have been added up. I think if you look back earlier, there's a small paragraph, but right now I think you have a list of points. This could potentially be an exam question this time, so I would obviously want to deal it in detail. So simple points. First benefit of an ERP system is that information, of course there are various modules, but ERP system integrates all the information in one place. The reason why ERP systems are called integrated is because they have the ability to automatically update data between related business functions and components. For example, one needs to update only, of course, if you update in one place, the update takes place everywhere, automatically gets updated everywhere. So yes, information is very much integrated all at one place. Now, the reduction of lead time, because lead time is the time taken between you make the order and time you receive the goods, right? So the time between placing an order and receiving goods is not a lead time. You know this from costing. But then in ERP systems, by virtue of their integrated nature with many latest technologies like material management, and also use technologies like electronic fund transfer and electronic data interchange, can significantly reduce the waiting time. See, in fact, nowadays we have systems wherein if the stock goes below a reorder level, automatically an order is placed to the vendor, and he will ship you the goods, and payment also takes place electronically. So there's amazing amount of control on the inventory that you have, so that you can have a reduction in lead time. And also works the other way around. When you want to dispatch goods and send it to people, you can have an on-time shipment. Since different functions are involved in the timely delivery, I mean, of course, right from like receiving customer order to processing the order to then shipping of the goods and then delivery of goods, all this, if all have been integrated through an ERP, since different functions involved in timely delivery of the finished goods to the customers, purchasing material, management, production planning, plant maintenance, sales and distribution are all integrated and procedures automated, the chance of errors are minimal. And the production efficiency is very high. Thus, by integrating the various business functions and automating the procedures and tasks, the ERP system ensure on-time delivery of goods. And you know what cycle time means, right? The time taken to complete one full cycle, that is also going to be reduced. Cycle time is the time between placement of the order and delivery of the product to complete one full cycle. And since all those activities are now put up in a centralized database, are all automated, and almost all these activities are done without any human intervention. So the efficiency of the systems is pretty high. Then improved resource utilization, the efficient functioning of different modules, the efficient functioning of different modules in the ERP, like manufacturing, material management, plant maintenance. I hope you read the modules already. And because each module utilizes, the database correctly, you can obviously maintain a lesser inventory. You can inventory is kept to the minimum. The machine downtime is minimum, and also the demand to goods are delivered in the most efficient way, which improves all the areas. The resource utilization is better, and of course which leads to a higher customer satisfaction, because you're either meeting or exceeding the customer's requirements. With the help of a web enabled ERP, customers can place order from wherever they are, and you can also dispatch the order in time along with that holding. And not only that, one part of this ERP module even is given to the supplier, so there is an improved supplier functionality. ERP provide vendor management and procurement support to coordinate all aspects of procurement. They support the organization in its efforts to effectively negotiate, monitor and control procurement costs and schedules while assuring superior product quality. The supplier management and control process are comprised of future that will help the organization in managing supplier relations better. And lastly, it obviously has increased flexibility. It's much better. ERP systems help the companies to remain more flexible by making the company information available across departmental barriers and automating most of the process, and thus enabling the company to react quickly to changing market conditions. Quality is defined. Reduced quality. Quality is defined in many ways: excellence, conformance to specification, fitness for use, value the price, and so on. The ERP systems database eliminates redundant specifications and ensures that a single system, a single standard procedures take effect immediately throughout. So basically, the quality assurance checking and the quality cost will obviously come down. Not only that, if you are having all the departments connected, you know how much inventory is there, you know how much time it will take to produce, and you know how much time it will take to deliver, whereby it talks about better analysis and planning capabilities. Another advantage provided by ERP system is to boost the planning function by enabling the comprehensive and unified management of related business functions such as production, finance, inventory management, and their data becomes possible to be utilized from the central database to make even, you can consider that data to be put in the decision support systems to make better decisions. Improved information accuracy and decision making capabilities. The three fundamental characteristics of information are accuracy, relevance, and timeliness. The information needs to be accurate, relevant, and important to the decision maker. So ERP provides you that information which is very much accurate. And use of the latest technology. ERP packages are adapted to utilize the latest developments in the information technology, like the open systems, client server technology, cloud computing, mobile computing, etc. So ERP also brings in the best of the latest technology to be adopted. So thereby, looking at all these points which are in the nature of some of the benefits of the ERP system. So that's what is the next topic, where you have amendments which are the benefits of ERP. We also discussed about definition of ERP, the 11 modules involved in ERP and all that. So two new aspects of coverage. One is the benefits of ERP, which is a very potential and valid question that can come up in the exam. And then the next topic that we're going to look at now are the risks that are involved in ERP. So moving on with the next one, that is called the risks involved in ERP. We see here. So if you understand, there are 5 different types of risks that we are going to talk about in the category here. So ERP implementation, its risk and related controls. ERP system implementation is a huge task. ERP system implementation is a huge task and requires a lot of time, money, and above all, patience, which is what most people lack. So that's what they're trying to talk about here. It needs a lot of patience. The success or failure of any ERP depends in terms of the payback and the return on investment. I think we have seen in the 8 steps of implementation that calculating ROI part is very important, and also dependent on its successful implementation. And once implemented, it has to make sure that there is a proper usage. So then, if you go by asking me, sir, what could be the problems? What could be the problem here? As such, the first one they called as people issues. Always there is a resistance to change, the element of resistance to change, because if things are going fine, then there won't be a problem. But whenever there are things which are going against or something that you don't really like to do, and that is where these problems come in. One of those could be implementation of ERPs. People issues, employees, management, implementation team, consultants, vendors, a lot of people. See, there is no one person's effort involved in doing all of this. So there are a lot of people who are involved in doing up all this. So, and unless all of them come in sync, this is not going to really work well. So thereby, let's look at, there is obvious going to be the need for a change in this entire process. And when there is a change like that, change has to be managed effectively. So the very first point that you're looking at here is called as change management. So what is the risk associated and respective controls required? Let's see. Change will occur in the employee's job profile, obviously, because the new ERP has come in, and change will obviously take place. So change will occur in the employee's job profile in terms of some jobs becoming irrelevant, maybe because the system will take care of that, so it will become irrelevant, and some new jobs being created. So what should you do? Because new jobs are being created, proper training of all the users with documented manuals, practical hands-on training of the ERP system has to be given, and make sure that there is a smooth transition from the old to the new system. That's what we need to make sure that people are not really against doing all this. The way in which organization functions, will change the planning, forecasting and decision making. Planning, forecasting and decision making capabilities will improve, and information integration happening. Yeah, so then obviously we have a central database now. The way in which the organization functions will change, so therefore it requires ensuring that a project charter or mission statement exists. A project charter or a mission statement exists. The project requirements are to be properly documented. The project requirements are to be properly documented and signed by the users and the senior management. Changing the scope of the project is another problem, obviously, because see, till now you've been looking at doing something, and then now you're changing the scope altogether. Changing the scope of the project is another problem. This requires clear defining of change. Now, what is the change and how is it workable, or what needs to be taken care of is also something that we need to properly look at. And also in managing change, the very important fact is about training the people. Manage the change slowly, make sure that this is a smooth transition. Point number one. Going to point number two, since the greater part of training takes place towards the end of ERP implementation cycle, curtail the training due to increase in the overall budget. Now this is obviously a risk, because see, management doesn't want to spend more on trying to do something towards the end of the ERP project. They'll be like, already we have spent so much, why should we spend more on training? But please understand, without training your employees in the right direction for the new job, how will they even work properly? So which is also to be a very important and thought of factor. Then going by the next one, we're going to talk about, so training is a project managed activity. Training is a project managed activity and shall be imparted the users in an organization by the skilled consultants. So whoever are the skilled consultants who are there part of your job, they should be involved in or indulged in doing this clearly. So thereby there can be a proper training. And then a lot of people may want to leave their jobs and go because they don't know how to work on this new one. So therefore staff turnover is a natural consequence. As the overall system is integrated and connected with each other, it becomes complicated and difficult to understand. And in case of staff turnover, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain the system. This can be controlled and minimized. with the help of proper staff training, having help manuals, having backup plans of staff turnover, etc. And then also, see, you read in the first chapter, all this requires thorough top management support. ERP implementation will fail if the top management does not provide the support and grant permission for the availability. So therefore, what should they do? The top management should be fully convinced and assured to provide a full range support and never do anything on your own. We talked in the first chapter, we said that we have to involve business process consultant, but look at the situation the other way. Consultants are experts in implementation of ERP package but may not be familiar with your internal working culture. So consultant will do it the way he wants to do it, but it's important that you tell them that this is our culture and this is our process. So it gets done in the direction. Therefore, the consultant should be a give somebody who can balance this. It's called a liaison officer. The consultant should be assigned the liaison officer, a senior manager who can familiarize them with the company and its working. So the first set of risks here we spoke about are called as people risk. Now let's move on to talk about the second one, which is called the process risk. One of the main reasons why ERP implementation is to improve, streamline and make the business process more efficient, productive and effective. More efficient, productive and also effective. How do you do that? Is to only 2 points, very simple. Have a smooth transition in the programming. So going by that, program management, there could be a possibility of an information gap. There could be a possibility of an information gap between day-to-day program management activities and ERP enabled functions like material management and procuring. So what should you do? This requires bridging the gap between traditional ERP based functions and high value operational management functions. High value operational management functions. So that requires a bit change. And then here we're looking at a complete BPR. I hope you guys know what BPR is from strategic management. BPR means not just change but a dramatic change and improvement. So thereby the organization might require overhauling of the organization structures, management systems, job descriptions, performance measurements, skill development, training and use of IT. All these are some of the cases wherein we indulge or use something called as process risks. So this is what are the second set of risks that are involved in dealing with this. Then moving on, the third one is called as technology risks. Let's look at what technology risks are. I hope you've already seen this bit of technology risks in the first chapter, but since they are already here, let me take you through a quick look at it. The organizations implementing ERP should keep abreast of the latest technological development and implementation which is required to survive and thrive. So let's look at some of the important aspects here. We talk about software functionality. What exactly is that? ERP systems offer a myriad of features, means a various bunch of features and functions. However, not all organizations require those many features. Implementing all the functionality and features just for the sake of it can be disastrous for an organization. So please see what is needed. So therefore, what is the control for such cases? Care should be taken to incorporate the features that are required by an organization and supporting additional features and functionality that might be required at the future date. Then the next point here is about technological obsolescence. Of course, one of the biggest technology risks is being, the product being outdated. So that is called obsolescence. With the advent of more and more technologies coming every day, the ERP system also becomes obsolete as the time goes on. So what should you do? Keep yourself updated. This requires critical choice of the technology. This requires critical choice of the technology, architecture of these products, ease of enhancement and ease of upgrading, quality of vendor support. Of course, and then we need time to time proper enhancements and upgrades. Now who doesn't have, all of you are using iOS and Android phones, so you keep getting updates on the new softwares, right? So it's very important. ERP systems may not be upgraded and kept up to date. Now if you're still continuing to use an outdated or old version, ERP systems are not upgraded and kept up to date. Patches and upgrades are not installed, and the tools are underutilized. Care must be taken. Care must be taken while selecting the vendor. Care must be taken while selecting the vendor, and upgrade or support the contracts should be signed to minimize the risk. Minimize the risk basically. Then application portfolio management. What about the application portfolio management? These processes focus on the selection of new business applications. These processes focus on selection of new business applications and the projects required by delivering them. So therefore, portfolio management. Like say you can do this for stocks also. Like that, bring all the right applications together. By bringing up the sheer number of applications in the current portfolio, IT organizations can begin to reduce the duplication and complexity. And so thereby all these are some of the points that one might have to concentrate when we discuss about technological risks. The last one right here is about other implementational issues. Now, when you say other implementational issues, let me talk about something wherein we discuss lengthy implementation time. The time taken to implement something may be longer. Many times ERP implementation withdrawn. Okay, the entire project is shut down because of the following factors. One being the lengthy implementation time. ERP projects are lengthy. That takes anywhere between 1 to 4 years. 1 to 4 years, depending upon the size of the organization, due to technological developments. Happening every day. The business and technological environment during the start and completion of the project will never be the same. During the business and technological environment during the start and end will never be the same. So therefore, and people may leave and go, employee turnover is another problem. So therefore, care must be taken to keep the momentum. High and enthusiasm live among the employees so as to minimize the risk. And then we speak about insufficient funding. Sometimes projects may get dropped midway. So thereby the budget for ERP implementation is generally allocated without consulting the experts. Sometimes the budgets are allocated without involving the experts. So therefore, it is necessary to allocate necessary funds. It is necessary to allocate the funds for ERP implementation project and then allocate some more for contingencies. As there is only one set of data, if the data is lost, the whole business may come to standstill. As there is only one set of data, if there is data safety, because we have a centralized database, so therefore, as there is only one set of data, if the data is lost, whole business may come to standstill. Backup arrangement needs to be very strong. Therefore, backup arrangement needs to be very strong. Also, strict physical control is needed for data. Strict physical control, like safeguarding, the physical control that we studied already. So, and then talking about the speed of operations. What about the speed of operations? As data is maintained centrally, gradually when the data size increases, the amount of data to be mined, data mining time also will be more. So the speed of operation will reduce. So what should you do? Is to control this by removing redundant data. Removing is to, archiving. You can even archive it to something that is not used. Removing redundant, repetitive data using techniques like data warehousing and updating the hardware on a continuous basis. And also to avoid system failure, as everybody is connected to a single database, in case of the failure of the system, the whole business may come to standstill, may get affected. So thereby you should obviously have a proper backup of data, always alternate hardware or internet arrangements. You can never tolerate some downtime in these kind of areas. And also data access. Now please remember, because the data is stored centrally, and all the departments access data is stored centrally, and all departments access the central data, and this creates a possibility of access to non-relevant data, Access rights need to be defined. Very carefully and need to be given on need to know and need to do basis. I hope you remember the role based access concept so that you get on a need to know and need to do basis. Then the last set of risk here. So we did talk about implementation risk. Now we also are going to talk about post implementation risk till if at all there is anything going wrong in post implementation. ERP operation and maintenance requires a lifelong commitment by the company management, lifelong commitment by company management and users of the system. So even after ERP implementation, there will always be new modules or versions to be installed, new persons to be trained, and new technologies to be embraced. So therefore, they require a strong level of commitment and consistency, just like we require commitment and consistency in you to manage, something like ERP. Also, we need a long level of commitment and consistency because this is not a overnight or a one-day exercise. That's what we're trying to bring in and understand here. So yeah, that is what is a quick update on chapter 2, because chapter 2 has a very few amendments when it comes to, they've added a few points on the what do you say, ERP's benefits, and then they've brought in all these risks that I'm scrolling down for you once again. Let's quickly revise on all these risks here. 5 issues. We have people issues. The first one is people issues, and then we have what is called as the process risk, people risk, process risk. Then we have technology risk. Then we have implementation risks, and then we have the last but the small one where you need a lifelong commitment, which is called a post implementation risk. So that brings us to the end of chapter 2, guys. In chapter 2, those are the amendments. Now, chapter 3 has only one small amendment with respect to big data. There's a small paragraph on big data, which is now elaborated a little more. Let me take you through that. You know what big data is. It's all about the large amount of data that is collected. Say, for example, massively large sets of data, massively large set of data that the conventional database tools, the regular database tools cannot bring in together. That's what is called as big data, right? Massively large sets of data that conventional database tools do not have the processing power to analyze them and deal with them. So that is exactly what you see in terms of what is called as a big data. They do not have the processing power to analyze them. For example, let's say Walmart. For example, Walmart must process over 1 million customer transactions every hour. Right? Walmart is doing this. It's processing 1 million transactions every hour. And when you say 1 million transactions every hour, imagine the amount of data people like Walmart or any banks for that matter will generate. Thereby, this sets of data is called as big data. Storing and analyzing that much data is beyond the power of a traditional DBMS. So thereby, understanding some of the best tools and techniques to manage and analyze them. Analyzing these large sets of data. Remember the definition of data mining, mining through a large sets of data. That's what this is all about. What are we trying to do here? If you are having big data, what are the benefits of big data processing? 3 benefits. This could be a possible question in the exam, guys. Define big data and define the benefits. Whenever there are amendments, there are always possibilities that questions can be asked from that. So this could be a 3 marks question. Simple. Benefits of big data processing are: 1, ability to process big data, and multiple benefits such as you can utilize outside intelligence while taking decisions. So processing so much data will help you know where exactly does your business stand and what exactly is your business up to. So that will also give you a great idea. Business can utilize outside intelligence while taking decisions. Access to social data from search engines like Facebook, Twitter will enable you to fine tune your business strategies, and also you can be early bird in identifying what the risk to the products, if any, on a direct basis. Ability to process big things will help you. Big benefits also: utilize outside intelligence, fine tune your business, and it reduces the risk of getting outdated because you identified a little more earlier. Also, you can have improved customer service. Traditional customer feedback systems are getting replaced by new systems designed with big data. In these new systems, big data and natural language processing technologies are being used to read and evaluate consumer responses. Read and evaluate the consumer's responses. Not only that, we have better operational efficiency. It's pretty faster as well. Integration of big data technologies and data warehouse helps an organization to offload, to offload infrequently accessed data. If you're using something frequently, fine. But like I said, we can always archive the data for infrequently accessed data, leading to better operational efficiency. Small answer, but I think does do some kind of a value addition. Okay, so that's what we have in the first three chapters. Very simple parts now. Chapter 4, which is about e-commerce, there also has been a small introduction of a new concept which is termed as e-commerce business models. So how does e-commerce business models work along? Let us even see that. So this is a slight bit of a change in the fourth chapter. Let's start discussing those different models. A business model. Now, normally, how you take your business to the market, that's what is called a business model. A business model can be defined as the organization of product, service, and information flows. Organization of a product, service, and information flows, and the source of revenues and benefits for suppliers and customers. Any business model is the adaptation of the organization's business model to internet. You regularly continue to keep doing the business, but it's an adaptation to the internet economy. A business model is adopted by an organization as a framework to describe how it makes money on a sustainable basis, and grows. A business model also enables a firm. A business model also enables a firm to analyze its environment more effectively and thereby exploit the potential of its markets, better understand its customers, and raise the entry barriers. I hope you studied those entry barriers in strategic management for the rivals. So let's see some of the e-business models. How does e-business work and what is the e-business model about? So 9 new methods have been introduced, in the sense 9 new models have been there. First one's called e-shops. E-shops are exclusively an electronic version of a physical shop. Now you have a physical shop selling something and it goes online. That's what an e-shop is. Nothing but a virtual storefront that sells products and services online. Orders are placed and payments are made. It's a convenient way of effecting the direct sales to customers. Allow manufacturers to bypass all those intermediate operators. Like say for example, W for women is a particular store, and you can possibly, things like that. It's not Flipkart and Amazon because they're going to come in the next one. This is only an exclusive store which now has gone online. Then the next one you talk about are e-malls. Like what? The e-mall is defined as a retailing model of a shopping mall, which is a conglomerate of bringing together of different shops situated in a convenient location in the e-commerce. The e-mall is defined as a retailing model of a shopping mall, a conglomeration of different shops situated in a convenient location in e-commerce. So thereby, going by something like e-auctions. Electronic auctions provide a channel of communication. Electronic auctions provide a channel of communication through which bidding process of products and services can take place. Bidding process. eBay, right? E-auctions and all happen wherein all those. So e-shops are exclusively for that. E-malls like Flipkart and Amazon, a conglomerate of everything. And e-auctions, a site like onsale.com and eBay. Now we are going with 3 more things here. The next one, portals, aggregators, and virtual communities. Let's talk about what these are. Now let's start with portals. Portals are nothing but channels through which websites are offered content. Websites are offered as content. The control of the content can be the source of revenue for firms through charging firms for advertising or charging customers a subscription for access, right? Netflix, you have Netflix portal of all the movies. You pay there by subscription and start using it. And then we have Swiggy, Zomato, Ola, Uber, all are aggregators, right? The buyer aggregator brings a large number of individual buyers. So like you have large number of individual buyers so that they can gain the type of savings. If you want to go to a restaurant, you can go only to that restaurant. But now Zomato, the app brings you all the restaurants in that list, right? So in this, the firm collects the information. In this, the firm collects the information about goods or service providers, make the providers the partners, and sell their services under its own brand. So example, Zomato is an aggregator. Then creating a virtual community is nothing but a community of customers who share a common interest using the internet to communicate with each other. Amazon.com provide websites for exchange of information on a wide range of subjects relating to their portfolio of products and services. Virtual communities, instead of gathering as a group or a cartel, you can as well group as yourself as a virtual communities benefit from network externalities whereby more people who join and contribute to the community, the greater the benefits that accrue, but without any additional cost to the participants. Then the last three, e-marketing, e-procurement and e-distribution. Now these are again very much an integrated part of the ERP systems. E-marketing, so all digital marketing is e-marketing, through which the use of electronic communication technology like internet to achieve marketing objectives. Of course, information on websites, of course the information on websites also empower customers and help them to achieve their objectives. For example, they can compare price of products by rival firms. The internet changes the relationship between buyers and sellers because market information is available to all parties in the transaction. Also, we talk about e-procurement. What is e-procurement? Now, e-procurement is most likely an integrated module in the ERP, whereby you can look about how these things go on. E-procurement is management of all procurement activities. Via electronic means. Business models based on e-procurement seek efficiency in accessing information on suppliers, availability, price, quality, and delivery times, as well as cost savings by collaborating with partners to, you know, to pool their buying power and secure best value deals. E-procurement intermediaries specialize in providing up-to-date and real-time information on all aspects of supply materials to the business. Then also talking about e-distribution. What about e-distribution? The e-distribution model helps distributors to achieve efficiency savings by managing large volume of customers. So instead of going by a single module, we talk about going through a e-distribution pattern, automating orders. So when your stock hits the reorder level, automatically it does the order, communicating with partners and facilitating value-adding services such as order tracking through each point in the supply chain. An example of a firm specializing in e-distribution is nothing but Wipro.com, which is using the internet to provide fully integrated e-business enabled solutions that help to unify the information flows across major distribution processes, including sales and marketing automation, customer service, warehouse logistics, purchasing and inventory management, and finance. So if you go by these 9 classifications, we have e-shops, e-malls, and e-auctions. We have portals, buyers, aggregators, and then we have e-distribution. We have e-procurement and e-marketing. I did miss virtual communities. Yeah, you have virtual communities. So the first 3 things you can go by remembering them: e-shops, e-malls, and e-auctions. Then we have portals, aggregators, and virtual communities. And again, we are back with these 3, which are called as e-marketing, e-procurement, and e-distribution. Now, all these 9 broadly are again categorized into only 3 of this, which are B2B, B2C, and C2C. B2C is all about e-shops, e-malls done from business to customer, supports activities on selling side. So on more of from business to a customer directly. E-shops, e-malls, e-auctions, aggregators, portals, all these are targeting a business, is targeting a customer. Wherein B2B, e-auctions between one business and the other. E-procurement, e-distribution portals, and e-marketing are generally between. These are supporting supply chains of the organization. So that's a small test that you can put to yourself to analyze how all these 9 are being categorized into 3 broad. And then you have OLX, you have Quicker, all these are where customer to customer, e-auctions, and virtual communities, wherein they are customer to customer, support the community plan surrounding organization and can be seen as a commercial extension of community activities. So all these are some of the points that you need to possibly take care of. So that is the only change in the first topic called e-commerce. There have been 9 business models of the e-commerce added up and then categorized into all those 3 of B2B, B2C and C2C. Also, there are no changes in topic number 2 called digital payments. There are no changes in any of the 10 emerging technologies except for one, which is the 8th one called IoT, Internet of Things. So there's a small paragraph added up there talking about where Internet of Things are being used. Where is Internet of Things being used? In the very first point, we talk about wearables, just like smart homes. I hope you know the concept of smart homes. Now you can talk to things also. So that's a little exciting thing to deal with. First of which is smart wearables. Like you have items right now wearing one. This is a smart watch, a smart wearable. So this one goes by connecting to my phone. So I can see who's calling. I can answer calls. I can check my messages and all of that. So that's exactly what a wearable is meant for. Wearables remain another important part of the IoT. You can see the Apple smartwatch, but right now what I'm wearing is a Samsung smartwatch. So it doesn't matter. It's as long as it's a wearable. Then you talk about the use of IoT in the upcoming days. You might see smart cities, which is a complete evolution of a new idea and a theory. Smart cities, like the name suggests, a big innovation and spans wide variety from like waste management, water distribution. So water will come to your house now. Water is coming in fixed times, right? Like say for example, in my area, it hits up at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. Now there are days where I don't need water from 9 to 10, but still, people just for the heck of it, because water is coming, we end up, turning on the tap, or we end up filling and keeping it, and then we don't use it for 2 days, and then we spill it down. So in order to avoid all this, we have a smart situation here. Like say, automatically when your tank is empty, there are sensors put up so that when the water level goes below, automatically the tank is refilled, and only when you use it, it is all refilled. So, and same is the case with IoT. I hope you've seen the past examples. IoT sensors attached to dustbins. If the dustbin is full, automatically a terminal gets a message. So all these, that I mean, we're now talking about making a smart house. They're talking about making a smart city, bigger one. That's it. So right from water distribution to traffic management, waste management, everything can be controlled through smart apps. Then we have smart grids. I hope you know the concept of grid computing. So smart grids, another area of IoT technology that stands out. A smart grid basically promises to extract information on the behavior of customers and electricity suppliers in an automated fashion to improve efficiency, economics, and reliability of the electricity distribution. Also, we're going to use IoT in industries, industrial Internet of Things. One way to think of industrial Internet of Things is by looking at the connected machines and devices, like say power generation, oil, gas, etc. In the industries, there's a lot of wastage of power. Now, like say I finish a particular job, I get up and go off just like that without switching off the lights. So when there is now, like you're so bothered about your phone, and there is 15 seconds of inactivity, your screen blacks out because you're so concerned about the battery. But why are we not concerned about power systems like that? So that is exactly where industrial Internet of Things come to stop oil wastage, gas wastage, or electricity wastage. They're all tagged with IoT sensors again. With an IoT-enabled system, factory equipment that contains embedded sensors, they communicate data about different parameters such as pressure, temperature, and utilization of the machine. The IoT system can also process the workflow, and change equipment settings to optimize the performance. The next two, I think you already know very well. A connected car and a connected health app. Connected car technology is vast and an extensive network of multiple sensors, antennas, and embedded software and technologies. You can see the MG Hector is a great way of calling a very smart car. You can speak to the car. It's internet enabled. That is a perfect example of an IoT. Internet in terms of things. You ask your car to, it opens up the boot, it opens the sunroof for you, it can start playing music for you, all by voice command. So that's called a connected car. Then we have a connected health, digital health, telehealth, telemedicine. IoT has various applications in healthcare. which are from remote monitoring equipment to advanced and smart sensors to equipment integration. It has potential to improve how physicians deliver care and keep patients safe and healthy. And then we also have smart retail. So retailers have started adopting IoT solutions. Retailers have started adopting IoT solutions and using IoT embedded systems across several applications that improve store operations, increasing purchases, reducing theft, enabling inventory management, and enhancing the consumer's shopping experience. Also, the last concept here is the smart supply chain concept. You can integrate both your suppliers and customers. So automatic orders can be sent to suppliers, automatic orders can be received from customers. So supply chains have already been getting smarter for a couple of years now and offering solutions like tracking goods when they are in transit and helping suppliers exchange inventory information. How much stock do they have and how much stock do we need and how much stock does the customer need? A perfect connection between all this, and that is exactly what we are looking at in terms of what is a smart supply chain. So all these are a few examples of what do you say, the IoT being used, and where is the IoT being used and how it is constantly being the upgrading versions of IoT in various devices is also seen through this. So that is exactly what we'll look out for in this topic, and that brings us to the last chapter, the few amendments in the banking chapter as well, the core banking. Banking activities are classified, so let us now go ahead. So I hope you're understanding chapter by chapter. Now guys, I am recording all at once. You can watch chapter by chapter when you're dealing with it, or you can also finish it at a stretch. So yeah, you possibly want to take a break and then come back and visit the video when you do only chapter 5. I think that makes a lot of sense for doing it right now. So I'm going up with the last chapter here, wherein there is a CBS, there is a core banking system, the entire chapter. Let's see how this works. In case the core banking system, and the core is the central server, correct? All key modules of the banking, all key modules of banking, such as back office, branch, data warehouse, ATM switch, mobile banking, internet banking, phone banking, and credit card systems are all connected, and related transactions are interfaced with the central server as explained below. Okay, let's go ahead. First one is called the back office. What is back office? The back office is a portion of a company made up of administration and support. So here there is no front office, like what the front office is, right? They meet the customers directly. So the back office is that portion of a company made up of administration and support who are not client facing, and back office functions include settlements, clearances, record maintenance, regulatory compliance, all of it not to do anything with the customer, everything else that is dealt with this. So back office functions include settlements, clearances, record maintenance, and we are also looking at monitoring employees' conversations and making sure that they're not doing any forbidden activities in trading securities in their own accounts and all that. Then we look back as one of the most important components of the bank is the data warehouse, the central data warehouse. Banking professionals use data warehouse to simplify and standardize the way they gather data and finally get one clear version of the truth. Data warehouses, what do? Is take care of difficult data management, digesting large quantities of data and ensuring accuracy and make it easier for professionals to analyze data. Banks also have a credit card system that provides customer management, credit card management, their account management, customer information management, and general ledger functions. Provides the online transaction authorization and serves as the bank a card in each transactional channel of the issuing bank. Support in the payment application, and at the same time the system is a flexible parameter. Complex organizational support mechanism and product factory based design concept to speed up the product time to market. And then let's talk about what an ATM does. You know what an ATM is. I don't want to tell you. The next two topics are very simple. Let me just take you through that. ATM is an electronic banking outlet that allows customers to complete transactions without aid or help of any teller, because we are replacing the teller only with the automatic one, right? Anyone with a credit card, debit card can access the ATM. ATM is a convenient, allowing customers to perform quick, self-serving transactions for everyday banking like deposit and withdrawal to more complex transactions like bill payment and transfers. Then there's a central server. You got to look back at the data center. There is a central server, the data center. Initially, so that's the story of the past. It used to take at least a day for a transaction to get reflected in the real account because every branch first will do that in their local servers, and then the data from the local server will get updated to the central server. Right now, nowadays, most of the banks use core banking applications to support their operations. You know what core stands for? Centralized online real-time exchange, which means that all banks branches, which means that all the banks branches access applications from a centralized data center or servers, and therefore any deposits made in any branch are reflected immediately, and customer can withdraw money from any other branch throughout the world. That's the idea behind doing that. Thereby, they talk about mobile banking and internet banking. What about that? Mobile banking and internet banking are the two sides of the same coin. The screens have changes, the sizes have become smaller, and banking has become more simpler, right? So I don't think I have to explain about mobile banking, internet banking. Just take a read about these guys. So internet banking, it's available an electronic payment methodology or a payment system. Mobile banking is a service provided by banks through mobile devices, wireless, handheld, smartphones, and tablets on 24-hour basis. You can always call to the bank and do phone banking. Nobody's using that. But you can also visit a branch to go and do branch banking. So there hasn't been much of a change in these topics. So that's why I'm just letting you through them. You can always take a read. Core banking systems are banks' centralized systems that are responsible for ensuring that there is a seamless workflow by automating the front end and back end process with the bank. Core banking systems enable a single view of the customer data across all branches in the bank and thus facilitate information across the delivery channels. The branch confines itself to the following functions, like what happens in the bank. It talks about, creating manual documents, internal authorizations, starting on the day, beginning of the day and end of the day transactions occur, and reviewing reports. Reviewing reports of control and error correction. Reviewing reports of control and error correction. So that's the whole idea behind doing with this. And then you talk about core banking systems, risks, security policies, and controls. So there's slighter changes in this topic. Like the kind of risks that banks face, risk associated with the core banking system. So if you're using a core banking system, what are the risks that you undergo? First one is called the operational risk. Is defined as a risk arising from defined as a risk arising from direct or indirect loss to the bank, which could be associated with inadequate or failed internal process. People and systems. Operational risk necessarily excludes the business risk because that's dealt separately, and strategic risk. The components of operational risk include in what comes in your day-to-day operations of what? Processing risk, information security risk, compliance risk, that is non-compliance laws and regulations, and people risk. What a people risk arises from lack of trained personnel. I think you remember what we saw in the third chapter. If you lack trustworthy and competent personnel, that is where the risk arises. Tampering of records, unauthorized access to dealing rooms, and striking a nexus between front office and back office if they both are not in tandem, that also can be a risk. Processing risk arises because faulty reporting. Processing risk arises because of faulty reporting of important market developments to the bank's management and may also occur due to errors in entry of data for subsequent bank computations. Legal risk arises because of treatment of clients, sale of products, or business practices of a bank. The countless examples of bank being taken to court by disgruntled corporate customers who claim they were misled by the advice given by them or business products sold. Let's talk about some of the credit risk and market risk. Two more types of new risks added up. Credit risk. that you gave loan to somebody who's not credit worthy, where loan becomes irrecoverable. That's what is called a credit risk, or there is an unexpected delay in servicing a loan. Then market risk. Banks obviously deal with trades like securities, then they deal with currencies, forex, and all that. So thereby, risk of loss in the bank's trading book due to change in price of shares, equity shares, interest rates, credit spreads, foreign exchange rates, and all that. The indicators whose values are set in a public market. To manage market risk, banks deploy several highly sophisticated mathematical and statistical techniques. And also, we talk about strategic risk. What is strategic risk? Is sometimes referred to as a business risk. Strategic risk, sometimes referred to as business risk, can be defined as the risk that earnings decline due to a changing business environment. Earnings decline due to a changing business environment. For example, new competitors or changing demand of customers. And we talk about compliance risk. Compliance risk is exposure to legal penalties. Compliance risk is what? Exposure to legal penalties, financial penalty, and material loss of an organization faces when it fails to act in accordance with the industry laws and regulations, internal policies, or prescribed best practices. And talking about IT risk, the last one which we already spoke about in so many places, because the banks are using latest technology, latest technology, that is where you end up getting something called as IT risk. And here, once a complete business is captured by technology and processes are automated, the data center, the bank, customers, management, and staff are completely dependent on the data center. So thereby, since the data center is the one primary spot where all this matters, so thereby banks can impart advanced training to its staff, permanent staff in the core areas of technology, and function as a short term, or they function at a short notice, is what we are actually trying to look at. So all these are the latest risks that are added up, and there is nothing much for me to explain the last topic, because these are just a little bit of additions to the offenses that are being added in the Money Laundering Act. Let me just take you through. See, this basically is totally the act, so giving it a read will suffice, but let me just take you through what are the important parts that you need to understand. This definition is already there, but once again I have put it here so that you can understand what exactly is the offense of money laundering. Whosoever directly or indirectly attempts to indulge knowingly or assists a person as a party to the actual or involved in any process or activity concerned with section 17, the proceeds of crime, including its concealment, possession, acquisition, or use, and projecting or claiming it as an untainted property, projecting it or claiming it to be an untainted property. Untainted is tainted, is something that has come through crime or something like that. But here, if they're projecting it as untainted, and I think that will be they should be guilty of the offense of money laundering. So what happens is, you have a small table there. Everybody is supposed to do a particular job out to actually see what exactly it is on to. Yeah, so every reporting entity shall, now everybody has to do this. The bank basically here is the reporting entity. They got to maintain the stuff. Every reporting entity shall maintain a record of transactions, furnish the director within such time. There's a table in your book. You can see that within 15 days of the succeeding month, they have to give some data. Within 7 days of occurrence of transaction, they have to give some data. So you're supposed to furnish the data and also maintain a record of all the documents evidencing the identity of client beneficial owners for all correspondence related to the client. Every information maintained, furnished, or verified services provided under the law for time being in force should be kept confidential. It should be kept confidential. Records referred to in clause A and clause B, both of them are to be kept safely for respective time periods, like 10 years and 5 years being told. So, they have to be maintained for a period of 5 years. You can go back and see what is clause A and clause B about. Then the central government may by notification exempt any reporting entity from the obligation of this chapter, but otherwise generally they're all supposed to maintain it. Now look at the power of a director to impose a fine. The director, either on his own or by any authority, make an order, make such inquiry into any case and as he thinks fit with regard to the obligations of the entity under this chapter. And if at any stage of the inquiry or proceeding before him, having regard to the nature and complexity of the case, if the director is of the opinion that it is necessary to do so, he may direct the concerned reporting entity to get its records audited by an accountant. Accountant for this purpose means chartered accountant. That is also told little later. In the end of the point, if you see, for the purpose of the section, accountant means chartered accountant under the Chartered Accountants Act, which is also very clearly specified. So let me get back to what the point is. If the director in the course of any inquiry, finds a reporting entity or its designated director on the board of its employer failed to comply with the obligations under this chapter, then without prejudice to any other action that may be taken, issue a warning in writing, or direct such reporting entity or its designated director on the board or on its of its employees to comply with specific instructions. Direct such reporting entity or designated director on the board or any of its employees to send reports at such intervals as may be prescribed on the measures it is taking, or it may by an order impose a monetary penalty. So all this can be done, and the monetary penalty shall not be less than 10,000, makes it up to 1 lakh rupees for each such failure. So all of this is something that we need to take into consideration. There's the powers of the director, and lastly, the director shall forward a copy of the order to every banking company, financial institution, or intermediary who's party to the proceedings under this particular section. And lastly, there is a couple of points here: punishment for false information. Any person who willfully or maliciously gives a false information and so causing an arrest or a search. So you gave false information because of which it led to the arrest of somebody, shall on conviction be liable for imprisonment for a term which may extend to 2 years, it may fine which may extend up to 50,000 or even both. So basically, if any person being legally bound to state the truth of any matter refuses to answer, so if you've been summoned and somebody is being asked and he refuses to answer, or he refuses to sign any statement, or to whom a summon has been issued and you didn't go, obviously it's a contempt of court action. Court or judiciary has given a particular decree or direction, or a summon is issued. Whether you are a party to it or not, you got to go there and be present and explain the situation to them. That's exactly what we need you to do. So, and if you don't, so there shall be a penalty, a sum by which not less than 50,000 rupees, but which may extend up to 10,000 rupees for each such default of failure. No order under this section shall be passed by any authority unless the person to whom the penalty is imposed is given an opportunity of being heard. The principles of natural justice. And of course, if anybody intentionally disobeys, they shall be liable to criminal proceeding, because you're not dealing with the same provisions are applicable like how they are applicable in a criminal proceeding. For this particular, all of this. So this is exactly what we look out for in terms of the points, and the last one is offense by companies. So all these points where the offense is being the person committing an offense is a company, then every person who at the time of the contravention who was responsible shall be deemed guilty of the contravention and shall be liable to be proceeded against and punished accordingly, provided nothing contained in the subsection shall render any such person liable. Now, if I prove, you remember the part where the directors for miscreants and prospectors, if they prove that contravention took place without their knowledge, then again, so if he has exercised all the due diligence, there's no punishment. Understood? So that's exactly what are the changes here. And for the purpose of this, the word company can also be read as firm or association. Director should be read as partner, and So this is just the last piece I was being just read it out to you. Actually, there is nothing much to explain. It's an act and that to a penalty provision. So thereby, I think you should try and understand what exactly are the penalties and the points. So yes, that brings us to the end of this session, guys. So wherein we've spoken about all the amendments that have been when compared to the November 2019 book to the May 2020 book. These are the changes, and I hope this particular video will exclusively be beneficial to all those people who have been totally in the search of one single video where they can look back at all of this at once. So this video is for all you guys here, and I believe that this is of some help. And if, of course, it was of some help, do share this with your friends also, because if they have failed the November 19 attempt or any attempt before and they want to write a May 20, this video will be a lot useful to them also. And then I will see you soon with a few more revision videos that I've lined up in the coming days. So stay tuned. I will see you soon. And thank you so much.